Hello everybody, this is Magic IT again here, and today I would like to talk about VPNs, of course. I'm aware that might be a little boring topic for you, but I can assure you that there's a lot of things that we can still find out and still look on. So, after our last three parts of VPNs, today I would like to go a little bit deeper and show you the Microsoft NPS service. Well, it's some kind of a RADIUS AAA server, so authentication, authorization, and accounting service. And one of parts of RADIUS is network access protection, but we won't talk about it right now. I suppose that about remediations and health validators we will talk about later. Today we're going to focus on RADIUS server only, and of course VPN. So we configure a VPNs with a RADIUS server, and I show you a plenty of things that we can do with this RADIUS. Alright, so let's start. Alright, at first I have to tell you that our lab environment didn't change at all. We are still using our last lab environment with VPNs already created, certificates created, and our connection can be up, so I can show you that we can connect by our VPN, of course. In configuration you can see that we're still using a certificate, so let's hope that every one of us get to this point and we've got already this configured, so we can start right away. Alright, we're going to properties, security, SSTP protocol, using certificate on our CA. Alright, so what we have to do right now is to install another role of our Windows server, and we will do this on remote routing and remote access server. Okay. There is nothing really unusual with installing this feature. In fact, it's installed like any other feature of Windows 2012. So we are going to our server manager, manage and add roles and features. So after the data will be collected, so give him a second. Alright. We are clicking just next, 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 and again next, and we're choosing a network policy and access services from here. We're going to next and next again, and we're going to deploy network policy server only. Okay, that time, of course. We'll restart the server if it will be necessary, and now we're waiting on. Alright, we've got our NPS server configured, and we are ready to go with it. But before we will go and proceed to the server, and I will show you some settings related to the VPNs, I would like at first go to the Active Directory server and show you settings that we've already configured before in our last sections, and it's related with the user settings. Okay, so give me a second over here. What we got here? Alright, we are on Active Directory server. We are going to a server manager and Active Directory users and computers. You remember that we are connecting as an administrator, so we have to go in properties of the administrator, and in properties we still got a permission allowed access. And anyway, because we've installed the NPS, we have to change it to the control access within NPS network policy. And now some things might be different, because I showed you that we are able to connect through the VPN, and let's check the same thing if we are able to do this right now. Okay, let's try to fire up it. We are about to start this connection, and we've got an error. So it's not so simple. It's not just about click and enable the NPS. We have to go deeper and find out what's going on over there. Okay, so we get back to our server again, so we can go to the server manager and fire up network policy server. Well, we won't talk about all of this stuff here because it's a large thing, you know, NPS service with a network access protection. So we're gonna think about only VPN related things, okay? And these are located over here in policies. So we've got a connection request policies and network policies that we will be interested in, all right? Connection request policies, there are already two because they are pre-configured, are related to the connection, of course. You've got a type of a connection here and conditions of connection, what to do with this connection, or proxy it to another server or process on that machine, and that's how connection request policies work. And the network policies, basically, these are policies that grant or deny access by specific conditions and constraints, okay? Authentication and so go on. We'll talk about this from the beginning, all right? So maybe we will start about a connection request policies, because when we try to connect from our client, we've got a denied error. There was some kind of error here, and as you probably already realized, this is first setting is related to the routing and remote access service policy. So let's try to figure out what's going on here. This policy is enabled, and the type of the network access, we've got here a remote access server, VPN dial-up. So it's related to our connection directly. So on the next tab, conditions, we've got a conditions on which the connection will be processed. So we've got a day and time restriction over here, but when we double click it, we've got all in blue fields, and blue means with the legend that it's permitted. So every time, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the whole week, and every hour is permitted. So it's not the point here. And the settings we've got here, to not override network policy authentication settings, which we will talk about a little bit later in the network policies, because the most important settings are over there. So we don't override it. We've got here in a forwarding connection request the authentication. So here is the place we can tell our Radius server to forward request to the remote Radius server group if we would configure something over there in the Radius clients and servers. So here. But we got, because we've got nothing over here, over there, so we cannot even choose it. So we can just accept users without validating credentials or authenticate requests on this server. So it seems that this policy has only one reason to exist. He tells our server that he should authenticate, try to authenticate on the local server. So we have to go a little bit deeper in the network policies. Well, we've got here a red access, which always mean troubles. So let's try to troubleshoot this. Connections to Microsoft routing and remote access server sounds familiar. Probably this. Well, this policy is enabled, but the access is denied. So if we grant access, then with our settings on the user side, it should be able to connect. And I would like to show you that I'm not lying here. So give me some second to move between our machines. Alright. So now when we try to connect again, we're down here and connect, it passed us one step further to verifying our credentials, and I suppose that it will connect. So we stay focused. Alright, so we're connected here. So basically our VPN now uses not only certificates but it's using also NPS service. So now I would like to get a little bit deeper inside this service and show you what can we do more. Okay, we've get back to our NPS server to check what else exactly we can set here in connection request policies. So we are going to conditions, and at first we've got a day and time restrictions here. Well, you can change it as you will. For example, if we would like to change it to only work hours, so office work hours, for example from 6 AM to 6 PM on every Monday to Friday. So we are just dragging over it. Yep. Well, at first we have to of course deny everything, and then we can set something here. For example, that part of the time to Friday. That's very easy. Alright. So we've got a first condition here. Let's add another one. For example, username. Well, we know that we connect as an administrator, so it's quite simple. Alright. Well, another thing I would like to say is that you can use here a pattern matching syntax, which means that, for example, if we know that this username will be starting as an administrator, so we can make a start sign here, and if we are aware that there might be a domain name after the username, we can, for example, tell our pattern to accept sign any word after the word administrator. So, for example, that means that any numbers of signs after administrator will be accepted here. That's our regex pattern. So we've got here a username and a day and time restriction right now. So let's add something more. I don't know, maybe what can we add here? There's so much stuff that I can't choose anything here. There is another thing that we have to say right now. Well, there's something like calling station ID and called station ID. Normally I would say that it's used only for the telephones, but unfortunately it's not true. Well, if we would like to set an IP address that we would like to connect from, so our access client IP address, we're not setting this here. That's a little magic, because I always thought that the access client IP address will be quite good enough, but if we'll type here an our client IP address, it just won't connect, because in VPN connections the client IP address is held here in calling station ID. So we know that we've got on 192.168 the address, so let's type it in a regex pattern also. So well, before this dot I have to also make a backslash here to treat this dot as a dot. Alright, and here we've got another dot and plus for any ending here. That's the pattern. Okay, we've got our preconditions. Well, you don't have to, I suppose, know everything here, but it's good to be aware that you have a potential here. So let's just try to check everything, what is needed for you. For example, I don't know, what tunnel type or service type. What tunnel type? Because we are connecting with a tunnel, so we can surely use a SSTP tunnel. Yes? Alright. Okay, we've got 4 conditions. Let's try to check if it's working on our client. So give me a moment. I will change the client here. Alright. And let's hope it will work here. No, something is clearly wrong. Well, maybe I made a mistake in a pattern. Okay, now I know that I didn't make any mistake in the pattern, but I became a prisoner of my own trap. Well, there was a time condition over there. Wait a second here. There was a time condition we set, and the hour is just not liking the condition here, so I had to change it to all. Or just we can change it to hour that we've got here. So before 5 a.m. It's a quiet morning here. I know. So let's check it like that. From 4 to 6. Okay. These will be permitted. The rest will be denied. Okay. Oh, damn it. Not that. From 4 to 5 to 6. Okay. Now it should be working better than the last one. Okay, so let's go back to our Windows 8 client and try to connect here. Well, that's much better here. Okay, so we've already processed the connection request policies, and if we met all of these conditions over there, our server will decide that he will grant access, and our client can be processed by network policies then. So let's take a look on the network policies. And the first policy. Well, I didn't mention about this before, but it's a quite handy feature here. If you will check this ignore user account del in properties, you won't have to set anything in a user's tab del in. Well, I'm telling it's a handy feature because if you get, for example, 1,000 of users or 10,000, it's overwhelming task, you know, to manually set all of these properties in their accounts, and you can just ignore them and click here, check ignore user account del in properties, and then it will be processed. Let's go to the next tab condition, which looks familiar for us. Well, we've got a first condition here, MS RAS vendor ID and its value. It's also regex pattern, as you can see, and on the beginning we've got a opening of the line sign, so it's a dash, and at the end it's a dollar sign. It's end of the line. So we expect in this condition value 311. At this point I would like to talk a little bit about the logs, where the logs are stored here and where they have their properties and how they can be configured. Well, the most funny and strange also thing is that Microsoft hide this. Well, you can find the log properties in the NPS service and connection request network policies anywhere here, because you have to search for the log properties in accounting. Well, don't you think it's a little bit strange? Well, I mean, accounting, it's closely related, of course, to the Radius server, but I'm not sure if log properties should be here. Well, but it doesn't matter, they are, in fact, so we will not change it. And we've got two ways of logging things here. Well, one is log based on connection to the database, so SQL Server logging, and one is a traditional log files, text files. So let's go to the file properties and to the log file tab. Here we have our directory, our path, the Windows System 32 log files. Here they are stored. Well, the format is old. Default format is ODBC legacy format, but you can change it, for example, to the DTS compliant. I will show the difference in a while. And here we've got a log rotation and what's to do when a log file will grow big. Okay. All right. Let's go to this path, this folder, and check how it is built. Well, for some of you might be familiar with it. Log files. All right. This small file looks like this. Well, it's a comma separated value file. Some of these values can be understandable. Well, that might be our remote access server hostname. That might be a type of a service, for example. It's a date, it's an hour. But there are some numbers here. Well, these are IP addresses of our NPS or RAS server. But there are some values that we had no idea what they are related to. There are some fields between these commas that are empty. And we also have no idea what they are. So that's the problem with the comma separated files without any headers. Well, now let's compare this log file with a new one that I've already prepared, DTS compliant log, which should look different. So let's go to the C, Windows, System32, and log files. And when we open it, this file, I know why it changed an icon, alright. When we'll open this file, it looks different. It looks like an XML format. Now, we've got everything here that we need. We've got a timestamp here, and we now know that it's a timestamp. Well, we've got an MRAS client name, and it's a name here. Well, everything is clear right now. So, whenever it's possible, use DTS compliant log. Okay, so let's get back to our server. Let's come back to our network policies here and to our connection. Well, we can add several more conditions here. So if we just click add, you can see that there are plenty of new things here, but some of those that we already know from the connection request policies are gone. For example, we don't find a username here, but we find a groups here. So Windows groups, machine groups, and user groups. User groups are related to the users, machine groups are related to the special computers, and Windows group are related to both. So you can use both a computer account and user account here and specifying Windows group. So maybe let's try to add a group here because we are connecting as an administrator. Let's add, for example, domain admins group. All right, so let's find the domain admins here. Click OK, and now the group domain admins from the domain test will be able to connect here. Let's check the other conditions that we can use here. Well, we've got a day and time restriction, for example, but we've already used this in the connection request policies. We've got a whole block about the network access protection, and if you will look deeper inside this, you will find out that there is something which is called operating systems. Well, the settings related to our operating system are very useful. Well, you can set the operating system version, service pack number, operating system role, architecture, and well, this stuff is really cool, but you must be aware that it's related to network access protection service, so it won't work without this. Believe me, I've spent about an hour watching the logs and trying to realize what the hell, what's going on, why it doesn't work for me. And I've realized that in the connection logs, there are no arguments such operating system version applied. They are not sent to the server because I have no network access protection configured. So don't use it without the next network access protection. It won't work. But, for example, policy expiration will work for sure because it don't need anything to be sent in a connection. It's just a time restriction. So we can add, and we could say, for example, that it will be valid for an hour. So the clients have 1 more hour and the policy will expire, and when the policy will expire, nobody will be able to connect. There are many more conditions that we can actually use here. Well, if we go down here and we will check what we've got here. Well, for example, we've got here our access client IPv4 address. I don't know if you remember, but a while ago I told you that it's not used because our access client IP address is stored in a calling station ID parameter. So you won't probably have to use it, but we can use some other connection properties here. Well, for example, authentication type, because we are using an EAP authentication, we can check an EAP here, but of course you can check whatever you're gonna use. We are going okay, so we've got an EAP authentication type right now. Well, to the authentication EAP, closely related is allowed EAP types, but what's important, you have to remember that if you're going to change something here, for example, first one, because we are using EAP only with the certificates, it might not work, because at first it's try to establish the tunnel with EAP authentication by checking a connection request policies. So at first you have to configure all of this stuff here by overriding network policy authentication and using a smart card or certificate. I will show you this. Let's look at the network policies. We've got this configured right like this, and we will try to connect right now. Okay, wait, give me a second. Alright, we've got our screen here, and let's go to the VPN connection and try to connect. We can't. There is an error. Alright, so we've already know that it's an error, so now I'm going to prove you that this error is related to part 1 process, which means connection request processing. So let's go to the connection request and conditions, no settings, and let's override the network policy authentication settings and use a smart card or certificate here. And let's try again to connect from the client. Alright, so we get back, we're connecting, and we are connected. So, I mean, you have to be aware that some of those things are dependent on each other. The last thing I would like to talk about in a VPN subject, it's VPNs based on the protocols that are considered as weak protocols. Well, we've got a PAP and CHAP protocols that are not encrypted, and sometimes from some strange reasons you have to use them. For example, if you got older devices that are still reliable and you cannot just throw them away. And I will show you that it's not so easy to force the newest systems, for example Windows 2012 and Windows 8, to work with such a protocols, but of course it's possible, and I would like to show you in a few steps how to achieve that goal. We should start with the client at first, so we'll have to change some settings in VPN connection. And if we'll go to the settings here and VPN connection set properties, we'll go to security. We won't be used anymore an EAP protocol. We allow protocols like unencrypted password and challenge handshake protocol. So that's all we have to know for now. What else? Well, during the connection, if we'll try to connect, it won't use a user certificate anymore, so we have to provide a username and a password. So let's go to the server side now. There are several things we have to take care about over here on our ring and remote access server at first. So let's go there. And in the properties of the RAS server, we have to go to the security and authentication methods. And we're going to change an extensible authentication protocol for CHAP and PAP protocols here. For that reason, we have to restart this service, and in the meantime we are going also to our NPS. All right. And in the policies, we don't have to do anything in the connection request because we've already we're not overriding anything, so any about the authentication protocol. So we have to go to the network policies and our connection here and change the authentication method for use CHAP and PAP. We can remove a better one from here. And also, what's more important, we are going to the settings and an encryption tab. We have to check the no encryption because PAP and CHAP are not encrypted. So they are not even basic, a weak encryption, it's no encryption. Alright, if we're going to stay like this, no. We would like to go also to the Active Directory, so let's go to another server. Because Active Directory is storing our user credentials, and in our case it's an administrative user which is trying to connect, we have to change several things also here on that side of our VPN. Well, we have to go to the users and computers and check the properties of our user that is trying to connect. We're going to account, and the most important here is to check store password using reversible encryption. Well, the oldest authorization methods like PAP and CHAP are using reversible encryption, which is of course less secure, but it's still available here, and we can just check it to be sure that it will be used by our service. Well, after applying this, there is also a need to reset a password because now the password is stored with a high level of encryption, and we have to change it to apply this, to change the password to reversible mode. So let's go to reset it. Okay. And now when we've got all of those stuff configured, let's go to the client and try to connect. Okay, we came back to our client and let's try to connect. We have to provide our credentials. Alright. Okay, we're connected, so let's check the status of this connection. Yes, we're connected with authentication CHAP. So we're using SSTP. But how about if we would like to use PPTP, the older protocol? But because if we are talking about the older devices that using only CHAP and PAP, so which means that they possibly don't have SSTP. They have PPTP, the basic protocol. So let's change it. Here in the connection properties, all right, the security, we're gonna use forcibly PPTP. Okay, we're gonna disconnect that one and connect and we're connected. We check the status, the details. We've got a PPTP with a CHAP. Okay. And how about using PAP? So maybe we'll try to turn the CHAP off in the security tab. Alright. And we got only now an encrypted password with a PAP. Okay. So let's do the same test with a PAP. Again, we have to give our username and password. And again, we're connected. So basically, we are able to provide a VPN service also for the older devices. Alright, that's all, and I hope it will be useful for you, and thank you very much for your watching.